Muito bom dia a todos. Eu sou
Good
Alceu
morning,
Bittencourt,
everyone. I am
presidente
Alceu
nacional da
Bittencourt, the
ABES.
national president
É
of ABES.
prazer receber vocês em mais uma
It's a
sessão
pleasure to have you
da
here in
Brasil Water
another
Week.
session of the Brazil Water
É a
Week.
sessão 6.2, atuar em
It's the
rede, a agenda
6.2 session,
internacional do setor de águas.
Building Networks, the
Nós
international agenda
vamos
of the water sector.
receber aqui o Benedito Braga,
We'll be
presidente
receiving
honorário do
Benedito
Conselho
Braga,
Mundial
the
da
honorary
Água,
president of
Kaila
the
Vaira
World Water
Vanursi,
Board.
diretor
We'll
executivo da
have
IWA,
Kalanity,
International
the
Water
executive
Association,
director of the
o
International
José
Water
Luiz
Association,
Inglese,
José Luis Inglese,
presidente da AIDES,
president
Associação
of
Interamericana de
AIDES,
Engenharia Sanitária
Inter-American
e Ambiental,
Association of
o Felipe Sampaio,
Environmental and
diretor da ANA,
Sanitation
Agência Nacional de Água e Saneamento
Services,
Básico,
and also
e
the
também
director
representante do
of
Fórum
the
Latino-Americano
Brazilian
de Água
Water
e do
Agency and
recém-criado Conselho Latino-Americano
representative of the
da Água.
International Water
Obrigado a
Forum.
todos por aceitarem o
I would like to
convite
thank
da
you
ABES
all for having accepted
mais uma
ABE's
vez.
invitation
Você
as
que está nos
speakers
acompanhando
today.
na plataforma pode escolher o
For
idioma
those who can
da
listen
sua
to us
preferência
on
num
Zoom and
botão
watching
que
us on
existe
Zoom, you can
em
choose the
cima com as
language of your
bandeirinhas
preference.
das línguas ou com o som original.
In the
Daí
bottom
eu,
part of the menu, there is a
em quem
globe, and you
estiver
can click there for a
falando
translation.
no som que tiver escolhido. E para saber mais sobre os nossos convidados,
For more information
acesse a
about our
área
guests,
abaixo desse vídeo,
please
com mais
reach,
informações
please
dos currículos dos
check the
nossos
description
convidados.
of this video
E
so you
após as
will have their
apresentações, nós vamos
bios.
ter
After
uma
the
rodada
presentations, we
de
are going to have
perguntas.
a
Vocês
Q&A
podem fazer
round,
perguntas pelo chat.
and then you can ask
Nós vamos
questions via
começar.
chat.
Eu antes queria só, como referência, dizer
Before
a
I
ideia
start,
dessa sessão
I'd like to share
é
the objective of
a ideia de
this
atuação em
session.
rede. Nós temos muitos eventos
It's
no nosso
about building
setor
networks. We have a lot of
e como
events in
fazer
our
que
sector,
eles se
and the
potencializem, que eles
idea
não
is
sejam
to
simplesmente eventos
potentialize them
isolados em si.
other than being just
Para dar
isolated
uma
events.
referência, estamos recém terminado o
We
Fórum
have
Mundial
recently
da Água em Bali.
ended
Nós
the
temos em
Water World
agosto
Forum in
o
Bali.
Congresso Mundial da
In
IWA
August,
em
we'll
Toronto.
have
Nós
the
temos em
World
novembro
Congress in
em Lima
Toronto.
o
In
Congresso
November in Lima,
da
we'll
IDES.
have the
Nós
AIDES
teremos
Congress
em
conference.
2025 a
And
COP
in
30
2025, we'll
em
have
Belém.
COP30
No
in
nosso,
Belém,
mais
here in
especificamente
Brazil.
aqui no Brasil, nós temos o
And
Sinubes, o Simpósio
in Brazil,
Luso
we have
Brasileiro,
Sinubeza,
em
the
agosto.
symposium
Temos
we'll
evento
have
com
in
a IWA
August,
de pequenos
and another
sistemas de
event
água e
with
esgoto em
EWA
Curitiba em
about
novembro.
SSWS in
Temos
Curitiba in
o Water
November.
Loss, o evento de perdas, gestão de
And we
perdas de
will have
2026 no Rio de
water
Janeiro,
loss,
e
the water
teremos o
loss
congresso
conference in Rio
da
de
IWA,
Janeiro
que vamos receber o
and the
congresso da IWA em
EWA
2030 em São Paulo.
conference in
Então é
2030
uma
in São
referência
Paulo.
dos vários eventos que a gente tem
So
na
these
nossa
are
agenda.
the
A ideia
events
é
we
de
have
como
in our agenda,
potencializar
and
em
the idea
rede
is
os
to
seus resultados.
potentialize them as we build
Nós vamos
networks.
começar pelo professor Benedito Braga,
We'll start
presidente
with
honorário
Professor
do Conselho
Benedito
Mundial da
Braga,
Água,
the honorary president
que
of the
infelizmente não pôde
International
estar por um
Board of
problema
Water.
pessoal
Unfortunately, he couldn't
presencialmente aqui,
be
mas
with
ele
us
gravou um vídeo e
face to
vai nos
face
dar uma
or in real
visão do
time.
recém-concluído
And so
Fórum
he recorded a
Mundial da Água
video
na Indonésia. Por
about
favor.
the last conference in Indonesia.
Olá, pessoal.
Hello,
Bom dia a
everyone.
todos. Queria aqui
Good morning.
cumprimentar meus colegas
I'm here
deste
representing my
painel,
colleagues.
lamentando
I
que
apologize for
estou
not being able
impossibilitado
to
de estar
be there
presencialmente aí com vocês,
in real time with
mas
you.
agradecer o convite
I want to
do
thank you
nosso
for
querido
the invitation
presidente
of
Alceu
our
a esta iniciativa
by Alceu, our dear president,
de eu participar dessa
and for having invited
iniciativa
me
da
to
Brasil Water
participate
Week.
in this session
Estou
for the
aqui
Brazil Water Week
falando
2024.
pausadamente
I am
para que
speaking
os
slowly
tradutores possam
because of our
com
interpreters.
tranquilidade
I hope they
fazer
can
uma
understand
boa
me very
tradução para
clearly
aqueles que
and
não
offer you a good
dominam o
interpretation
nosso
for those who
idioma
don't speak
português.
Portuguese.
Bem, o Fórum Mundial da Água em Bali, na
The
semana que
World Water
passou,
Forum in Bali was last week,
retrasada, foi
the
sucesso
week before last week, and it
absoluto.
was very successful.
Eu compartilho aqui com vocês
I am going to share some
as,
of the highlights with you.
compartilho aqui com vocês, então, uma apresentação
And I'll also share my
breve
slide presentation.
desse
It's short,
nosso evento.
but it's just for
Aqui
you to have an idea.
uma sessão de
You can
síntese
see
que é
this photo.
pouco o que
It's what they call a
vou
synthesis session.
apresentar às senhoras e os senhores. Esses são os
And
coordenadores
these are the
das
coordinators.
diferentes processos que tiveram
They
lugar
oversee the different
nesse fórum, o processo
processes
político,
in the forum.
que
The
teve uma
political
componente de
process,
chefes de Estado. Temos
it
aí
had
o
heads of
ministro Bazoum,
states
filho
as
do
part of
presidente
it,
Henrique Forjon,
Minister Pazou,
que juntamente
Mr.
com o
Pujon,
presidente da República da
and
Indonésia,
also the
foram
president
os
of Indonesia.
responsáveis pela condução do processo
They
de chefes de
led
Estado. Depois,
the
o processo
process of
ministerial,
heads of states
que
in
o
the
embaixador
event. And we
tritariate
also
da
had the
Indonésia
ministries.
e
We
eu
had the
mesmo
ambassador of Indonesia
fizemos essa
and myself.
coordenação.
We
O
coordinated
processo parlamentar, o
this
processo
area.
de autoridades locais e
Congress
regionais,
people,
prefeitos,
local
governadores,
authorities, regional
e
authorities,
também a novidade
mayors,
deste fórum foi
governors.
a
And there was
presença
something new
dos
in this forum.
presidentes dos comitês de bacia
The
hidrográfica,
presidents
as
of the
autoridades de
committees
bacias
of the water
hidrográficas que
basins and other
participaram. Além disso,
authorities and
nós
regulatory
tivemos o
agencies which
processo temático,
participated in this event.
com
And
os
we
6
we
temas
also had
chave do
the
fórum,
topics, the 6
e
main
os
topics we divided
processos
into thematic
regionais das
fields
Américas,
and
que eu
also the
tive
regional
juntamente
processes
com
for the
Sérgio
Americas. For
Campos,
example, I was
chefe
with
da divisão
Sergio
de água e
Campos, the
saneamento do BID,
head of the
a
Water and
honra
Sanitation
de
Division of the
chefiar
IDB.
esse processo,
And I was very
coordenar
honored
esse
to be
processo,
the head of this
que
process, to
teve
coordinate
4
it.
sub-regiões: América
And
do Norte,
there
América
were 4
Central e México,
subregions in this
o
process:
Caribe e a América do
Caribbean,
Sul.
Mexico, North
Também
America, and South
tivemos o
America.
Ásia-Pacífico com
And we also had
5
Asia Pacific
sub-regiões,
with 5
Ásia Central,
subregions:
Ásia do
Central
Norte,
Asia,
o Sudeste
Northern
da Ásia,
Asia, the
e
southeast of Asia,
a África,
and Africa.
com as 4 sub-regiões também.
They also had
Muito
4
bem. Então,
subregions.
o fórum ele teve 64 mil
The forum
participantes.
had
Dentro desses
64,000
64 mil,
participants.
tivemos 20
Among
mil
them,
registrados como profissionais
20,000
que
were registered
participaram
as
ativamente das
professionals and specialists
278
who
sessões,
participated
incluindo
actively
aí
in
as
the
sessões
288
os
sessions,
painéis de
including
alto nível,
thematic
as sessões
sessions,
especiais,
high-level
as
panels,
sessões
special
regionais e as
sessions,
sessões
regional
políticas.
sessions, and political
160
sessions.
países participaram
160
e
countries
no
participated
centro de
in the
exposições
event.
tivemos
And in our exhibition
254
and booth
expositores,
area,
5
we
chefes de
had
Estado e
64
135 delegações ministeriais.
booths and
Foi
more than
adotada
65
a
ministry
Declaração
delegations.
de Bali,
The Bali
onde
Declaration
se
was
destaca
adopted,
aí
and we have
o
some
tema
highlights for
da
it.
como direito
Water
humano
as a
fundamental.
right, as a human right, a fundamental right.
Nós tivemos várias interações
And we were able to interact with more than 70 countries.
Da, digamos, da da preparação da
These
minuta
countries
que,
participated in
ao
the
final do fórum,
drafting
foi
of the
aprovada, né?
minutes, which
E lá
was approved
também as
in the end of
questões
the forum,
relativas à importância da
and also
adaptação
issues related to
às
the importance
mudanças
of
climáticas,
adaptation to climate
principalmente
change,
na questão do abastecimento de água,
mainly
que é um
regarding water
tema muito
supply, which
delicado e
is a
importante que
very
a ABES
sensitive topic.
se dedica, de maneira
ABES
que a
has been
declaração
devoting a lot of
ministerial,
its energy
que
to
já
this topic,
está
and the
no
ministerial
site
declaration or
do,
statement that we
do fórum,
have
né,
in the forum
worldwaterforum.org,
website, the
também
worldwaterforum.org website.
tivemos como subproduto dessa declaração
We had,
ministerial,
other than the ministerial
casos de
statement
sucesso,
or declaration, we
mais
had
de 100
byproducts
casos de
like
sucesso e
cases of success, more than
vamos ver
100 of
também
them,
comprometimentos
and many commitments, individual commitments,
organizações não governamentais,
and
de governos,
commitments by
em
NGOs and
relação aos
governments.
temas do fórum.
Such
Bem,
commitments were related to all the
então,
topics and
eu vou
discussed
passar
in
assim,
the forum.
muito rapidamente,
I'll
obviamente,
go
porque o
very
tempo
briefly
que eu tenho disponível
over
aqui
my
é tempo
presentation
muito
because I know
curto,
I don't have a lot of
mas eu
time.
vou só passar rapidamente uma
However, I will
síntese do que
show,
foram as
I'll actually
principais
bring a summary
conclusões
of the main
e
conclusions
resultados
and
concretos
also concrete
desse nosso
outcomes
fórum, né?
that we were
Tenho
able
aqui, então,
to take from the forum.
vou compartilhar aí com todos espero que estejam vendo muito
I
bem.
hope you can read this document I'm
As
sharing with you.
iniciativas políticas, né?
These are
dentro
the
daquela
political
declaração
initiatives
que
within
eu
the
comentei
declaration.
aqui, nós tivemos uma proposta
So we had a
do governo da
proposal
Indonésia
of the
da
Indonesian
criação
government,
de
which was to
centro de
create
excelência para
a
água e
center of
clima
excellence
para
for water and climate
a região da Ásia e Pacífico,
for that
né?
specific
E
region
também
of
uma
Asia and the
força-tarefa para
Pacific,
implementar
and also
essa
the
questão
task
da gestão
force to
integrada de
implement
recursos
the
hídricos
integrated management of
em
water
estados
resources and
de ilhas, né? Que é uma
islands
situação bem
and
particular
island
lá da
states,
Indonésia.
because they have
Os
a very
parlamentares
specific
que eu no
situation
processo
for these
político
islands
deixei
in Indonesia.
de comentar,
We
mas
had
que
the
aqui está,
parliamentary representatives, congressmen
estabelecer
and women,
uma
and this group
comunidade
have
de
established
experts,
the need for
parlamentares
a
experts em água e
community of
saneamento,
experts
criando
in
grupos
water
temáticos
sanitation,
com
creating
parlamentares
thematic groups
nacionais e
with
organizar
the national counterparts,
network de
and
parlamentares para
also
promover a
to
cooperação
create
e
a group
troca
or a
de
network of
experiências, né?
congressmen and women
Também
to exchange important information.
nas autoridades locais,
Also,
uma
for local
chamada
authorities,
para que participem
there is a
do Summit das
call
Nações Unidas
launched for them to
sobre o
participate
futuro da
in
água,
the United Nations
que
Summit
é
on
uma
the future
iniciativa
of
dos
water.
governos do Cazaquistão
This
e da
is
França,
an
né?
initiative
Sobre
created
água
by
no âmbito
the
das
governments
Nações
of
Unidas.
Kazakhstan and France.
No
And this
segmento
summit will
Bacias
talk about
Integradas,
water
a
within
criação de
the
bacias
scope of the
fêmeas,
United
né?
Nations.
Em termos
For
de
water basins, we saw
resultados
discussions around the creation of twin
temáticos,
basins,
a
and
questão da
in terms
infraestrutura
of thematic
verde, a
outcomes,
infraestrutura feita pelo
we
homem
saw discussions around
para as
green
utilities
infrastructure,
e organizações
human-created
governamentais
infrastructures,
que
utilities, and
esse
governmental
compacto
organizations.
será lançado
And
durante a
this
COP29.
package will
Também
be launched during
na Ásia,
COP29.
para os humanos e a natureza.
Also
Na questão
on water for human and
o ICHARM, que é
nature,
órgão da Unesco
and
baseado no
on
Japão,
disasters.
para criar
We
aí
have
sistema
a
de
UNESCO
sustentabilidade e resiliência,
body based in Japan
coletando e
to
arquivando
create a system for sustainability and resilience.
climático, né?
And
Na área da governança,
this is an entity that brings together different
teve
water and
lançamento do
climate
reporte
information
da
regarding
OECD,
governance.
da OCDE, né?
Oh, there was
Na
the
economia
launch of an
azul, em
OECD
cidades e
report
regiões,
regarding
financiamento,
the blue
questão de
economy in
financiamento
different cities and regions.
misto entre
We also
público e
touched
privado
on
e a cooperação
financing
Sul-Sul.
water,
Aqui,
public
a
partnerships,
Unesco
South-South cooperation. Here at
update do
UNESCO
seu sistema mundial
shared
de
an update
preparação de técnicos
of its
na
world
área de
system
água e
for
saneamento.
the preparation
Em
of
termos
technicians in
das
the area of
iniciativas
water and
regionais,
sanitation.
as
And in
Américas
terms
com a
of
criação
regional initiatives,
do Conselho
Americas,
Latino-Americano da Água,
with the
que o
creation of
nosso
the
colega
National Latin
Felipe
America
Sampaio,
American Water
participando
Council.
dessa
Our
sessão
colleague
do
Benito
nosso
São
Brasil
Paulo
Water Week,
participated in
vai
this
trazer
session,
para as senhoras e senhores os detalhes desse
and
lançamento que
he
aconteceu
will be sharing with
no
us more
pavilhão
details
latino-americano,
during
pavilhão
this
muito
Brazil Water
bem
Week.
organizado aí
This
pela ANA, pela Ibob,
this launch happened in
e
the
que
Latin American
onde nós
Pavilion, which was very
fizemos
well
o lançamento
organized
oficial
by the National Water Agency,
desse
ANA. And in this pavilion, we had the
Conselho
official launch
Latino-Americano que
of
o
this
presidente
Latin
Lula
American Water
Fauchon
Council.
deu as boas-vindas
And President
dessa
Fouchon
iniciativa no início da
welcomed
Brasil Water
this
Week.
initiative at the beginning
Na
of
questão
Brazil Water
da
Week.
região mediterrânea,
So
o desenvolvimento de observatório de
we also touched
recursos hídricos não
Mediterranean
convencionais
issues
e
and
energia
the
renovável,
development of
notadamente aí
a
a questão de
reservoir for non-conventional
dessalinização
water
de água,
resources. We also discussed
na
desalination
África.
and water reuse in
Foi feito
Africa.
aí alinhamento da visão africana da água
We saw the
pela
alignment of the
Associação dos Ministros de Água da África, baseado lá em
Association
Addis Abeba, na
of
Etiópia.
water ministers
E na
in
Ásia,
Africa, water
há
ministers
uma
based
contribuição
in
importante,
Ethiopia. For
para
Asia,
o Ano
we saw an
Internacional
important
dos
contribution
Glaciers,
for the International
para a
Glacier
preservação
Year,
desses
for
recursos
the
estratégicos que
preservation
são os
of
glaciares.
these strategic
Bem,
resources.
e aqui também
And
há
here
uma parceria
also
no Pacífico,
there
na
is a
Oceania,
partnership
relacionada com segurança
in the
hídrica
Pacific,
em estados
which is related to
islámicos,
water
né,
security
de ilhas. E também
in
uma
island
participação
states.
importante, né, com da juventude,
And
do
also,
pessoal até
we
35
saw
anos, que
a strong participation
estão aí
of young
implementando
people up to 35
plano dos
years,
jovens de Bali, sobre
who are
educação, liderança,
implementing
emprego
the
no
Bali
setor
Youth
da
Plan
água.
on education, governance, and
Então,
employment
eu
in the water sector.
espero ter dado aqui uma
So
visão muito geral
I hope that I've been able to give you a
desse fórum, mas
general
eu
overview
gostaria de
of the
destacar
conclusions
que o
from this
continente
forum.
americano teve
I would like to highlight that the
uma
American
proeminência muito
continent
grande em função desse
played a
trabalho
very significant
feito
role
através
due
da
to the work
junção do processo
conducted
regional
by
propriamente
bringing
dito,
together the
primeiro Fórum Latino-Americano
regional
da Água,
process per se,
que a Ana
and the
apoiou,
first
aí,
Latin America Water
iniciativa
Forum
das
that was
associações
supported by Anna.
ABES, ABR Hidro, ABAS,
This was an
juntamente com o
initiative
Arrebore,
that involved
criaram esse
ABIs
Fórum
and
Latino-Americano
other
da Água,
associations.
primeiro lá em Aracaju,
Together, they
que
created this
levou
first
também
Latin American
contribuições
Water
importantes
Forum
aí
that took
com o
place in
apoio da
Aracaju,
Agência Nacional de
and
Águas e
they were able
Saneamento,
to bring
a Ana,
important contributions
com
with the
a
support of the
liderança
National
do
Water
diretor
Agency,
Felipe
with
Sampaio.
the leadership
Muito
of
bem, então,
Director Felipe
de
Sampaio.
novo,
All
agradecendo
right.
a oportunidade
So,
de poder
again,
falar a
I want to
vocês.
thank you for the
Vou por
opportunity
aqui
to
encerrando
talk
e desejando, então,
to all of you.
que
So I
esse
will
painel
wrap up, and
seja
I
painel
wish you
muito,
all a very fruitful
muito cheio
and
de contribuições e
rich
discussões em
panel.
torno
I hope you
desse
have very
tema
rich
da água no
discussions
nível internacional.
about
Mas, para deixar
the topic of
ponto,
water at
digamos
an
assim, se
international level.
pudéssemos, de
But
tudo isso que foi mostrado,
if
resumir
of everything that I've
uma
shown,
frase, eu diria
I
que
could
foi muito
summarize
importante
all of that
o
in one sentence,
resultado que
I would
tanto
say
no
that
processo
it
temático
was
como no
very
processo
important,
regional,
the
como no processo político,
results that we have
o
on the
entendimento de
thematic,
que
regional,
segurança
and political
hídrica
pillars
é tema
were very
fundamental
important. There is
que
now the
se
understanding that
relaciona
water security is
com
a crucial
a
topic,
questão
which
da
is
mudança
directly
climática
linked
no sentido de
with climate
aumentar
change
a nossa
and
resiliência às variabilidades
we
do clima.
must
Ou seja, o tema da
increase our
adaptação
resilience
e
to
que o
climate
setor
changes.
hídrico
So
tem
the
que ser
topic of
levado para as
adaptation,
próximas
and that
COPs,
the
para
water
que o
sector
tema da
must
adaptação,
be taken to the next
através
level,
da infraestrutura, através
is
do uso
crucial. So we
eficiente
see
da
that
água,
adaptation
esse
through
tema seja
infrastructure and
também
through
discutido de forma mais
the efficient
expressiva
use of
nas
water
próximas COPs do
is
clima.
a topic
Bem,
that must
agora
be
sim, de
more
fato,
significantly discussed
agradeço
in
muito e
the
a
following
atenção de todos e
COPs.
desejo
So
uma sessão
that's it from me.
muito
I'd
ativa
like to thank you
e
all
de
for the
resultados
invitation, and I hope
muito
you all
positivos.
have a
Muito
very
obrigado.
engaging session with very positive results. Thank you.
Bem, nós agradecemos ao Benedito Braga pelo esforço de
Thank
gravar o
you.
vídeo. Deu uma
Thank
resenha
you, Braga,
interessante do
for
que
recording
aconteceu
this
no fórum.
video and for
E lembrando
summarizing
aos
everything that
nossos palestrantes
happened
que o tempo
in the
da
forum.
apresentação prevista de 15
I'd like
minutos
to
é
remind
limitado.
our
Eu
speakers
vou
that you have
chamar
15
o
minutes
diretor
to give your
executivo da
presentation.
IWA,
Now I will pass
International
the
Water
floor to
Association,
the Executive
para
Director
Mayra
of
Vanurti, para utilizar
IWA,
a palavra.
International Water Association. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Can I just confirm that my screen is being shared?
No, not yet.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you okay,
Yes.
but we
Okay.
can't see your screen.
Okay. Philippe, is my screen being shared?
No, I don't see
You
it
just tell.
here.
Okay. Can you see my screen now? Yep. Okay.
Yes, okay.
Okay. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you all. I'm speaking to you from sunny Istanbul. So my apologies that I can't be there with you. On behalf of the International Water Association, I would like to congratulate the Brazilian Association of Sanitary and Environmental Engineering, ABIS, for organizing such an amazing event. It's truly encouraging to see such a high level and globally focused event happening in Brazil. So congratulations to ABIS. I would also like to thank ABIS for the invitation for me to participate in this panel, which is focused on international cooperation, a theme that underpins the very existence of IWA. So IWA at its very core is based on international cooperation. Our association's governance structure is built around national governing members who represent IWA at national and regional levels. Currently, we have 67 governing members that come from every corner of the world. And in fact, the regions where we see the greatest growth is in Latin America, Africa, and Asia. Now, our governing members are the cornerstone of IWA. They bring the international perspective to IWA, and they share best practice, and they ensure that knowledge exchange is happening from south to south, from south to north, from north to south, and north to north. And the governing members really bridge the divides between sectors and disciplines to achieve tangible changes in water policy, practice, and on things like on-the-ground water management. Now, our governing members meet at least once a year face-to-face at our governing assembly, where they help to set IWA's broad objectives, they endorse IWA's strategic plan, and in fact, they also elect our presidents, our vice presidents, and each country within the governing assembly has one vote. Currently, we have representation from 8 Latin American countries in our governing assembly, including Brazil, whose national committee is led by Abyss. Now, international cooperation is also key to our membership engagement strategy. IWA recognizes that effective water management requires a holistic approach, bridging the gap between science, policy, regulation, and practical applications. Now, this is achieved through our membership base of about 10,000 members from over 140 countries. And our members come from a diverse set of backgrounds, including academics, utilities, regulators, consultants, technology providers, government agencies, NGOs, etc. What IWA prides itself on more than anything else is our ability to bridge the gap between research and practice. And we do this in a very systematic way. Of course, we have members who are very, very academic. So that's on the left-hand side of this picture. We have practitioners who are very much interested in pumps and valves who are on the right-hand side of this picture. But in the middle, we have academics, researchers who have one foot in research and one foot in practice. And we have practitioners who have one foot in practice and one foot in research. And this group that's in the middle is a group that we really target quite systematically to ensure that there is an uptake of the research that we're doing into practice. One of the key strengths of IWA is its active inclusion of the private sector. At IWA, we have always understood the importance of private companies in developing innovative technologies, in delivering projects at speed, and in providing scale and reach. At the core of our association is our 51 specialist groups. And these groups take a deep dive into the cutting-edge topics that are relevant to the international water sector. So our SGs are the important engines for scientific and technical content development, fostering cross-disciplinary dialogue and ensuring that cutting-edge research informs practical solutions. Our specialist groups are carefully engineered to ensure that there is a good balance between fundamental research and applied research to ensure that we bridge the chasm between research and practice. As I said earlier, this is one of the most important mandates of IWA. You can see on this slide a list of our 51 specialist groups. I'm not expecting you to read them, but just to show that what we're talking about is really deep dive research groups. Our scientific and technical work is complemented by our work in the policy, regulation, and governance spheres, where international cooperation remains a cornerstone for achieving progress. And IWA engages with policymakers at various levels. For example, we have a special relationship with the World Health Organization. We partner with them, for example, in the development of their water safety plans framework. In this partnership, IWA really plays to its strengths, as we have many members who are practitioners and from utilities. And so we have this unique ability and the credibility to professionalize new ideas and approaches. And that's what we do for WHO in respect to their water safety plans. As an official partner of UN Water, we also were instrumental in the collaborative planning process for the historic 2023 UN Water Conference, the first such UN conference for nearly 5 decades. During our own 2022 World Congress in Copenhagen, IWA and the Danish government co-hosted a high-level summit focusing on 3 critical topics: finance, governance, and partnerships. And the outcomes of this high-level summit, which involved high-level government officials from 39 countries, was presented by IWA and the Danish government at a high-level ministerial event at the UN Water Conference. IWA's participation in the UN Water Conference also included collaborating with UN agencies and other official partners in developing the thematic concept papers for many of the interactive dialogues. We also took 14 members of our young water professionals community who had important roles to play at the UN conference. One great outcome of taking these young people to New York is that they have now developed an accountability framework to monitor the commitments made by the various stakeholders involved in the Water Action Agenda. The framework will be launched at our World Water Congress and exhibition in Toronto in August. IWA also actively promotes international cooperation in the area of water regulation. And this is achieved through collaborations with regional partners like the Association of Water and Sanitation Regulatory Entities of the Americas, ADRESA, and the Eastern and Southern African Water and Sanitation Regulators Association, ESAWAS, as well as the WHO's regulatory network, RegNet. In 2014, during the World Water Congress in Lisbon, we launched the Lisbon Charter. And this is an internationally recognized framework outlining best practices for public policy and regulation in the water sector. And it serves as a guide for national and local governments, regulatory authorities, service providers, and water users. Lisbon was also the birthplace of the IWA's International Water Regulators Forum. Now it's in its 9th edition. This high-level event brings together water and sanitation regulatory authorities, along with government officials from around the world, involved in water policy development and implementation. Participants exchange knowledge on water regulation, they share successful approaches, and learn from each other the challenges that they face. The 2024 edition of the forum will be held in Toronto on August the 13th. Now, as a leading advocate for international cooperation, IWA plays a key role in setting agendas for change on critical themes through its strategic programs. A prime example of this is its Cities of the Future program. The program leverages the power of the IWA network to propose innovative strategies for managing urban water resources in a sustainable and resilient way. And this initiative led to the creation of the IWA Principles for Water-Wise Cities, a comprehensive guide for integrating water management into urban planning and design, aiming at enhancing urban resilience to climate change. Launched in 2016, the principles have become a valuable tool for city leaders around the world, with endorsements from over 100 cities and utilities worldwide. Other examples of IWA programs addressing critical water challenges are the Inclusive Urban Sanitation Program and the Climate Smart Utilities Initiative. The Inclusive Urban Sanitation Initiative is part of IWA's broader effort to promote cities that are inclusive, resilient, water-wise, and sanitation secure. And IWA advocates for a context-specific solution that goes beyond just technology and infrastructure. And again, we are helping to professionalize this approach. We also have our Climate Smart Utilities Initiative. This aims to support utilities working worldwide in sharing knowledge on climate mitigation and adaptation, working together towards building climate resilient water and sanitation systems. And this initiative includes a recognition program that recognizes and celebrates international exemplars, trailblazers in the field of climate. Our strategic programs are always done in partnership with agencies like the UN and all the major banks, the IFIs, and large foundations like the Gates Foundation. And this highlights the critical role of international cooperation in amplifying the impact on practice and policy of the work of IWA. In terms of IWA's regions, Latin America and particularly Brazil are very important for us, as they are key players in the global water and environmental arena. We all know that the world's largest river basins are located in Latin America, the Amazon, the Parana, and the Rio de la Plata. These basins cross 12 different countries, which makes the region internationally recognized in the area of transboundary watershed management. Latin America is also the home to 4 of the 10 largest cities in the Southern Hemisphere, which makes urban water management, including water supply, sanitation, and stormwater, particularly relevant for the region. Focusing on Brazil, it holds the world's largest freshwater reserves, accounting for approximately 12% of the global supply, including 2 of the largest groundwater systems in the world. Nevertheless, Latin America and Brazil still face significant water-related challenges. These include providing universal access to safe water supply and sanitation services for its urban and rural populations, severe pollution of its watercourses, and increasing frequency and intensity of droughts and floods due to climate change. These last 2 challenges, in particular, should be very present in the minds of most of the participants of the Brazil Water Week, who will certainly remember the serious effects of the drought that affected the state of São Paulo between 2014 and 2017, and more recently, the tragic floods that still affect the south of the country, widely reported in the news. The combination of significant challenges and opportunities has enabled Brazil to have a prominent position in the international water and environmental debate. You just have to think of Rio 92 and Rio +20. Now, Brazil continues to be a leader in hosting important environmental and water-related international events. The upcoming G20 Leaders Summit in Rio de Janeiro, November 2024, is expected to focus heavily on water security, particularly its connection to climate change. Additionally, the COP30 in Belém do Pará will position Brazil at the center of the climate discussions. It's no surprise then that Latin America is a major area of interest for IWA, and that both the Inter-American Association of Sanitary and Environmental Engineers, AIDES, represented here today by my good friend Jose Luis Inglesi, who is also IWA former Strategic Council member, and ABIS, who are both really key partners to our association. IADIS and IWA's collaboration began in 2002, and the highlight of this partnership was the IWA Water and Development Congress held in Buenos Aires in 2017, for which Jose Luis was really one of the leading lights. ABIS collaboration with IWA dates back to the IWA's formation, as ABIS was one of the founding national committees when IWA was created by the merger in 2000. So this relationship has been strengthened since 2020 under the leadership of the ABIS's current president, Marcel Bittencourt. Some important outcomes of this recently strengthening partnerships between IWA and Brazil. For example, we have the 17th Small Water and Wastewater Systems Conference and the 9th Resource-Oriented Sanitation Conference, both taking place in Curitiba in November 2024. Another major IWA event coming to Brazil is the Water Loss Conference to be held in Rio de Janeiro in 2026. Finally, and of course we can't overlook, we will be having the 2030 World Water Congress and Exhibition in São Paulo. The World Water Congress is really one of the leading global events, and it attracts over 10,000 participants from across the world. The 2030 edition in São Paulo will be particularly significant because by then we will have the final assessment of the 2030 SDGs, and the Congress in Brazil will be an opportunity to reflect on progress and identify remaining challenges to be addressed. So hosting this milestone event in São Paulo will allow IWA and ABIS to position Brazil in the forefront again of the international water sector. Before turning the floor back to Marcel, I would like to invite everyone to participate in our 2024 World Water Congress in Toronto, which is between August 11th and 15th. And I want to reiterate my gratitude, my sincere gratitude to Abis for inviting me to participate today. The discussion on how international cooperation can bridge the gap between scientific progress and practical solutions is crucial for our sector. So thank you for organizing such an important session. Back to you, Marcel.
Obrigado, Carla.
Thank you so very much, Carla, for your excellent overview of IWA. And I would like to pass the floor to our mother agency. I'd like to invite José Luis Inglese to please take the floor.
Bom dia. Obrigado al seu por o convite a participar.
Good morning. Thank you for the invitation to participate in this session. Unfortunately, my Portuguese is quite limited, and so I will continue my presentation in Spanish.
Agora. Bom, esta sessão que se
This
llama
session that is working in a network, the international agenda for the water sector, as Alceu has said, well, it is represented by the Inter-American Sanitary and Environmental Engineering Association. But AIDES is an association of national associations. The main association of the 24 that comprise it is the Brazilian Association of Sanitary and Environmental Engineering, and it is located in the city of São Paulo. We are participating, but we feel at home, and on the other hand, I am sharing this panel with my colleagues. The honorary president of the World Water Council, Oncala, for example, who is the executive director of the IWA, and also with Felipe Sampaio, who is a co-founding member of the Latin American Water Agency, and of course with the ABIS president, Mr. Alceu. For us, this is a true pleasure. I would like to quickly present to you what AIDES is, how it works. It was founded 76 years ago, and also thinking in the international scope. And I would also like to share with you what the opportunities it offers to Brazil specifically, so we can better disseminate everything that ABIS does in terms of its activities, and also about the technology, what Brazil can offer and what we can offer to Brazil as well. It is important for me to mention about the international challenges. The availability of water is increasingly less reliable. What we used to say in theory, we do see in many places in practice. Montevideo, Cidade do Cabo, São Paulo, that faced a very significant drought, Chile in its central zone, which suffers from hydric emergency and has done so for the past 10 years. The Paraguay-Paraná Basin that suffered the worst drought 2 years ago. And all of this shows us that which was previously seen as theory, we do see in practice. And This affects the lives, the economy, and also the relations between countries. Well, what do we need to do? We have that who was extremely important in the 20th century that said that crazy is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. The approaches, the conventional approaches that the countries have been having have perpetuating the main challenges that keep us from a long-term change in the water sector. Therefore, I have a very important message for you, and that is that we need to move away from geographic and political limits that have been defined by mankind and not by nature, so that we can work, in fact, in an international network. I have a message to share with you here. It is a final conclusion from the World Water Conference of 2023 that was carried out in New York in March of 2023 by the United Nations. And this message that I'd like to share with you that is on the screen was said by the UN General Secretary and says the following: at this decisive moment of the 2030 Agenda, and let us recall that the UN were those that disseminated and supported the Sustainable Development Objectives, and especially for our sector, the challenge or objective number 6, which is the safe water and sanitation for all. As a conclusion for this World Water Conference that counted on more than 10,000 participants and 700 New York entities at the UN headquarters, and during that decisive moment of the 2030 Agenda, says that during this decisive moment, all of the sectors must work together efficiently, efficaciously, and in a coherent manner to create, design, and promote joint solutions. Therefore, working in an international manner in a network would be to fulfill the mandate of the UN, specifically for this water sector. The world water crisis today is seen and is reflected upon and is reflected on a lot of water. 23% of the world's population, so more than 1.8 billion persons faces the risk of floods, and this was stated last year, but currently, unfortunately, after what we have seen happen in the state of Rio Grande do Sul, we see that this number is no longer theoretical, but instead factual, and is a situation that affects many people. Climate change is increasing rainfall, causing floods, erosion, and it damages harvests and crops. But also, we do see crisis through other places where there's little water. So 1.2 billion persons live in those areas that are affected by scarcity of water. Even despite Latin America being very privileged in terms of water supply, there are places in Latin America, very important areas in Latin America, where there's water scarcity, as the one that I showed previously. And there's something that is quite connected to water, and that is food production. Food production suffers greatly from the influence of water. Let us recall that we hope or we expect that food demand will likely increase in 60% by 2050. The droughts reduce agricultural productivity between 7% and 14%. And so this means that there are people still in the 21st century that suffer from hunger. We are talking about the quantity of water, but we need to speak about the quality of water as well. Unfortunately, a lot of the water in the region and a lot of the water of the ocean in the entire world is extremely contaminated. About 30% of the residual water at the world level is not treated. More than 3,500 billion people lack access to the sanitation services that are safely managed. There has been a decrease in 83% in the abundance of freshwater species since 1970. Furthermore, the contamination by plastic, microplastics, and nanoplastic in the water, international waters, is one of the main concerns at the world level. ADIS, as a propulsion agent of the International Water Agenda, the Inter-American Association for Sanitation and Environmental Engineering, is a technical, scientific, civil society that brings together the main professional institutions and students of the three Americas. So it covers the entire American continent, dedicating itself to the environmental preservation, health, and sanitation. And it has been doing this since it was founded on April the 14th, 1948, and that was in Santiago, Chile. So last year, we had the pleasure on this day at the Sessao headquarters, the Economic Commission for Latin America, that depends on the UN. We celebrated the 75th anniversary at their headquarters in Santiago, Chile, and thinking that 75 years ago, with the difficulties in travel and communications that we had, it was unthinkable for us to have an international agenda, global and inter-American agenda. But with a group of dreamers led by engineer Abel Woolman from the United States, with the support of the Pan American Sanitation Offices, this group of dreamers was able to create this association and to maintain this association for 75 years. So speaking about the problem of water and sanitation at that time, as well as the environment, that was quite limited to a very small group of persons. But what are the problems that IDIS sees and summarizes in terms of the International Water Agenda? Well, first of all, intersectorial, limited and inefficient intersectorial coordination, water sanitation, agro, solid waste, and industry. And this is not only scarcity of water, but in several technical divisions where there's drinking water, solid waste, residual water, the quality of water, the imposition, the disposal of water residues, the circular economy, and the effects of climate change. But unfortunately, we also have many inefficient operations, and many of these inefficient operations are caused by the deficiency in capacity.
So it's very important to understand the political importance of water because of the chronic lack of investment in this sector. And we also see a scarcity in participation and funding from the private sector. So these are four problems that we have found not only in our continent, but also all around the world, because it summarizes the problems the international agenda has, as well as the inter-American agenda. What are the main international players of water in Latin America and the Caribbean? We have the development banks, the World Bank, the IDB, CAF, as well as the Central American Bank of Economic Integration, based in Honduras. Also, the technical institutions and the institutions for water policies, such as the International Water Association, the IWA, and the World Water Council, and also the Global Water Partnership. The international organizations also play a key role, such as the OPS, Sessao, the Inter-American branch of the World Health Organization, and UNICEF, as well as many other international organizations. We have listed some of them, and in all of them, they have joint activities. For this reason, building networks is something that they have already done, and they are effectively developing currently. What about the tools AIDS has for ABES in Latin America? First, information. Today, we know that we've started the age of information. The contemporary age is past, and there is a tsunami of information. So it's very important to classify and adequately distribute the information. It's an urgent need. We also have our newsletter, Info AIDS, and we have published them in the three main languages: Spanish, English, and Portuguese for Latin America and North America. We have the LinkedIn that was created last year. We went from 0 to 1,200 followers in a year. And also our journal, the national chapter of our international journal. We have the participation of Colombia, Chile, Argentina, and Mexico. And this is a tool for technology, spread information, as well as information related to trade and to university studies. We also have the spread of technology and the capacities of Brazil in the water sector. So we have the Inter-American Conference every 2 years since 1948. And we've always offered a conference for all these years, and the next one will be in November 2024. We also have the regional conferences. The next one is the South Cone Conference in Rosario, Argentina, next week. And also we have Sessao event, and they have activities with UNICEF, especially in collecting information and sharing them. And then we have the key aspect, which is capacity building. Brazil has amazing capacity building centers, such as federal universities and private universities. And today we have more access to other ways of training and capacity building through the internet. So we have, for example, the IHE Delft Institute and the Netherlands. It's a center of excellence for this topic, and also the University of Mexico. I would like to highlight that AIDS, since its foundation, has been involved in working in a network, building relationships with all the players and sectors I've mentioned, and that this is a very efficient tool for a country like Brazil, which is of continental size, can actually cover and cover this topic, offer technology, knowledge, and to continue building partnerships around the world and the American continent. So I'd like to thank Abis through Alcel. It's been a pleasure to be speaking to you. And finally, I would like to highlight one more thing. AIDS has been approved to be part of the founding members list. So we hope that we are able to reach political tools and sectors through this instrument. We know that there are technical sectors, academic sectors that we have already been able to reach, but now we need to reach another level, the political sectors, so that better decisions can be made, as well as the right measures to ensure concretely the access to all these services. So thank you, Abis, thank you, Alcel, and my colleagues
Obrigado,
in
José
this panel.
Luis. E passamos já,
Thank you,
então,
José
ao
Luis.
Felipe Sampaio,
Now we're going
da
to give the
ANA e
floor
do
to
Fórum e do
Felipe
Conselho
Sampaio
Latino-Americano da Água.
from the Latin American Board of Water and also a representative of the national agency. I'm sorry, but we can't hear the speaker in the booth.
Pares aqui de altíssimo nível, né? Cumprimento aqui o presidente da ABS, Alceu Bittencourt, cumprimento também o amigo José Luiz Iglesias, né? Da IDES, toda a parceria que temos ao longo do tempo com essa instituição, e também cumprimento aqui o Carla da UWA, né? A Ana recentemente se associou ao UWA, né? Como permanente também, e tem participado aí ativamente da construção.
I'm sorry, we're not interpreting into English because the speaker's voice is too soft and we can't hear them well enough.
Eu queria agradecer o convite para estar nesse painel, especialmente porque a agenda da água em nível internacional tem sido, né, ao longo desse meu mandato na Agência Nacional de Água e Saneamento Básico, uma das minhas prioridades. Então, desde que ingressei na ANA, em 2022, me pareceu bastante evidente que não se pode pensar em recursos hídricos com uma mentalidade isolada. Então, e por mais que isso possa parecer óbvio para um país da envergadura como o do Brasil, essa percepção não é tão evidente assim, né? Afinal de contas, temos tanta água e temos um território tão grande que não precisaríamos nos preocupar com o compartilhamento e a integração de recursos hídricos. Mas aqui, eu ouso dizer que é exatamente por isso, né, por essa abundância, por sermos um país de dimensão continental e por possuirmos cerca de 12% da água do mundo, que precisamos sim pensar sobre os nossos recursos hídricos, sobre um olhar, uma perspectiva internacional. Então, a gestão eficiente e sustentável dos recursos hídricos não pode e não deve ser pensada de forma isolada. Então, é fundamental a cooperação e a integração internacional no nosso campo para favorecer o desenvolvimento econômico, social, ambiental e também o cultural. Então, a Ana tem desde a sua
Once
criação,
again, I would like to apologize as we cannot hear the speaker well enough to interpret him into English. We're trying to get the technicians to solve that, but it's just impossible to interpret into English in this level of volume.
Que já tinham essa prática bem estabelecida, buscamos nos aproximar de instituições com as quais poderíamos aprender e, pouco a pouco, fomos ganhando robustez, prática, conhecimento e experiência. Hoje, a apesar de ainda buscarmos nos aproximar de bons exemplos de governança e gestão, posso dizer que a ANA exporta hoje seu conhecimento e serve de exemplo das boas práticas, oferece capacitação a diversos países, como eu vou mencionar mais à frente, e inspira programas e projetos que vêm sendo replicados não só na região, mas também em outras partes do globo. Então, digo com orgulho que onde há fórum relevante que debate recursos hídricos, a presença da ANA é indispensável. Então, a ANA tem essa vasta experiência internacional e eu poderia passar aqui o dia falando sobre as diferentes iniciativas com as quais estamos envolvidos, mas hoje eu quero destacar apenas três exemplos, né? Primeiro é o programa de capacitação que a ANA tem. Segundo, a parceria que nós temos com a OCDE e o recente lançamento do Conselho Latino-Americano da Água, como já mencionado aqui pelos amigos Benedito Braga e também pelo José Iglesias. Então, o primeiro ponto que eu queria ressaltar nessa minha breve fala é sobre o programa que a ANA tem para a Capacity Building. Gostaria de destacar os acordos bilaterais que temos e multilaterais, né, a partir dos quais são realizadas ações de capacitação, publicações, né, produção de objetos educacionais voltados ao público de bacias compartilhadas com outros países. Então, como exemplo, posso citar o projeto de cooperação Sul-Sul, né, para o fortalecimento da gestão integrada e do uso sustentável dos recursos hídricos no contexto dos países da América Latina e Caribe e da comunidade dos países da língua portuguesa, a CPLP, que vem sendo executada pela ANA, pela ABC e pela Unesco desde 2013. Então, um dado aqui, só de 2020 a 2013, nesse intervalo de tempo, como exemplo, de capacitações que a ANA fez para Angola, Argentina, Bolívia, Cabo Verde, Chile, Colômbia, El Salvador, Equador, Moçambique, Nicarágua, Peru, Paraguai, Suriname, República Dominicana, Uruguai, Guiana, entre outros países. Então, capacitamos nesse programa especificamente quase 3.000 pessoas, né, que atuam direta ou indiretamente com recursos hídricos em seus países. Então, a ANA é considerada um case de grande sucesso quando o assunto é a capacitação e temos emprestado nossa experiência nesse tema para diversos países. Outra parceria que eu gostaria de ressaltar, da qual nos orgulhamos bastante, e recentemente completou no ano passado 10 anos, com a Organização para a Cooperação e Desenvolvimento Econômico, né, a conhecida OCDE. Então, desde 2013, essa colaboração visou inicialmente prover um diagnóstico da governança da água no Brasil. Então, esse foi um trabalho de peso que envolveu mais de 100 stakeholders do setor e buscou entender caminhos, aprimorar fortalezas e melhorar as capacidades em todos os níveis de governo. O resultado foi um relatório abrangente intitulado Water Governance in Brazil, que apresentou um panorama detalhado do setor de recursos hídricos brasileiro. Em seguida, voltamos nossa parceria para o aprofundamento da análise do valor econômico da água, por entendermos que instrumentos econômicos podem desempenhar um papel importante na gestão eficiente e eficaz dos recursos hídricos, quando implementados e governados, né, e geridos adequadamente. Então, nesse contexto, entendemos a água como um aliado crucial para o desenvolvimento econômico e social do Brasil. E o relatório Water Charts in Brasil trouxe um conjunto de recomendações, muitas das quais já foram implementadas aqui no âmbito da agência. Durante a pandemia, mesmo com as diversas restrições impostas, conseguimos avançar com o relatório Fostering Water Resilience in Brasil, abordando a segurança hídrica, a governança multinível, colocada em prática na bacia dos rios Piancó, Piranhas-Açu, né, que fica ali nos estados da Paraíba e do Rio Grande do Norte, e as novas atribuições da ANA para o saneamento. E é um relatório bem robusto, bem completo. Ontem, então é algo bem recente, lançamos aqui, na agência mesmo, o relatório impulsionando o desempenho da Agência Nacional de Água e Saneamento Básico. Esse foi um trabalho que nós iniciamos no ano passado, né, que foi um mergulho na estrutura organizacional e processual aqui os nossos modos operandi internos, os procedimentos adotados no âmbito da agência e quais devem ser os próximos passos que a ANA deve perseguir para aprimorar ainda mais a sua atuação quanto agência reguladora, que segue padrões e boas práticas internacionais. Então, por fim, e reforçando ainda mais a ideia que a gestão da água, né, exige uma abordagem integrada e cooperativa em todos os níveis. O último caso que eu quero trazer aqui é a ANA, em conjunto com outras instituições, como o Rebob, né, Rede Brasil do Organismo de Bacia, a ABS, que aqui está organizando esse evento do Brasil Water Week, a ABAS, Associação Brasileira de Água Subterrânea, e também a BR-Hidro, né, a Associação Brasileira de Recursos Hídricos, iniciou tratativas ainda em 2023 para a realização do primeiro Fórum Latino-Americano da Água, que ocorreu em novembro na cidade de Aracaju, do estado de Sergipe. Então, a partir dessa iniciativa, vislumbrou-se a ideia de criação de um Conselho Latino-Americano da Água, que pudesse ser, então, essa instituição internacional com o objetivo de desenvolver ações, projetos, programas na América Latina, integrando as políticas públicas de gestão de água e saneamento e compartilhando conhecimento, dados e boas práticas. Então, a grande ideia é termos uma agenda integrada aqui no nosso subcontinente. A recente instalação do Conselho Latino-Americano da Água ocorreu em Bali, como muito bem já trazido pelo Benedito Braga aqui, né, no início, durante o 10º Fórum Mundial da Água, né, e isso reforça a importância, né, de criação de um organismo com esse perfil regional forte, pois entendemos que a cooperação se torna indispensável, principalmente aqui nessa nossa região, onde temos praticamente 1/3 da água doce do mundo e temos apenas de 8 a 9% da população mundial, né? Então, é indispensável essa instituição, né, esse organismo, para enfrentar os desafios hídricos e comuns e os eventos extremos que temos tido cada vez mais frequência. Então, o Conselho Latino-Americano da Água reunirá governo, associações do setor privado, organismos internacionais, bancos de fomento, empresas e academia. Então, eu concluo aqui a minha fala destacando que a cooperação internacional desempenha um papel vital na gestão de recursos hídricos. A ANA tem uma vocação internacional e, como tal, tem buscado desempenhar esse papel de maneira tenaz. Os exemplos que citei ilustram como a atuação em rede, cooperativa e integrada é a solução que devemos buscar para os desafios dos recursos hídricos e da universalização do saneamento básico. Então, cooperar é o único caminho para a implementação de programas, projetos que promovam a gestão sustentável da água. Então, eu concluo aqui e me coloco à disposição. Muito obrigado ao senhor.
Obrigado, Felipe.
Thank you, Felipe.
Tensa agenda da ANA aí, essa iniciativa que
The
compartilhamos do
ANA
fórum
has
agora
been
do
working
Conselho.
hard on this
Nós
topic,
temos algum
and
tempo ainda na nossa sessão.
it's very glad to have
Eu
you
vou
here.
voltar a
It's very good to have you
palavra
here.
a
We
vocês
still have some
para a
time
gente
for our session, so
ouvir
I will
pouco de
give the floor
vocês
back to you so we can hear a
sobre
bit from you
o que temos pela
about
frente aí, dar um destaque
what we
para a
have ahead of
COP30
us, especially
na
COP30
Amazônia, né, em Belém,
and the
no Pará,
Amazon and
no ano
Belém
próximo,
and Pará.
e é um evento complexo e vai canalizar muitas
It's a
das
complex
energias
event,
de
but it
discussão das questões
will
ambientais
require a lot of our
e
energy on
queria ouvir
environmental
de vocês
topics.
assim
So
as
I'd like
coisas
to
que nós
hear from
temos pela
you
frente, como
the
podemos
things we
atuar
have ahead of us
conjuntamente aí para que,
and
como eu
how we
falei no início,
can
para
work
potencializar essa agenda
jointly
que
to
vocês
potentialize the agenda
mostraram aí com
you've
amplitude
shared with
que
us
nós temos
in a very
feito e o que
comprehensive
temos pela
manner.
frente aí.
Everything we've
Eu
done
acho que nós temos aí
and
3 a
what we
4
have
minutos
ahead of
para
us. So we
cada
have
um.
3 to
Por
4
favor, vou
minutes.
começar pelo Cala.
So I'll start with Kala.
Yes. Marcel, yeah, sorry. Can you repeat the question, Marcel? Can you hear me?
Yes, but I
Yeah.
could not unmute my phone.
Sure.
vou repetir em português
I
para
am going
não
to repeat it in Portuguese
atrapalhar
and then I'll
a
be
tradução.
interpreted.
Ouvi um pouco sobre a agenda que
So
nós
I
temos
heard
agora pela
about the
frente, e
agenda
para
that we
nós
have
aqui,
ahead of us,
focando um pouco mais na América Latina,
and
e
also
nós teremos esse evento
focusing
de
on Latin
impacto
America, we
mundial, que
will
será a
have
COP
major events.
30
One of them
em
is
Belém,
COP30 in
na nossa
Belém,
Amazônia brasileira, né,
in the Brazilian
no
Amazon.
próximo ano. Então, houve
So
formas de atuarmos
there has
integradamente as
been
estratégias
different
internacionais,
ways of
no
us
nosso caso
working
aqui,
together
nacional, né,
as international
para
agencies
implementar a
and
discussão da nossa agenda
organizations,
do setor de água
so
nos
we can
próximos anos,
implement
e
the
dando
water
destaque
agenda
para
in
a
the
COP, que é
following
um evento
years,
muito
mainly
importante para nós aqui.
highlighting COP30, which is a very important event for us. So I'd just like to hear your comments about this.
Yeah, thank you very much, Marcel. I think in the COP30 discussions that will take place, I think one of the big issues that we're finding is appearing generally is the impacts of poor sanitation on urban communities, particularly when there are more extreme events. In many places, when we don't have access to sanitation, the city potentially gets constipated during the dry periods. And when you have extreme rainfall, then what potentially happens is that large amounts of untreated wastewater is floating around a city. And so I think the connection between climate adaptation and sanitation is becoming much stronger. And I think certainly in a country like Brazil, where you do have still quite large informal settlements where access to sanitation is a bit poor, I think that topic would be something that should be considered quite seriously. The other aspect which IWA is starting to explore now is some of the challenges, some of the lessons we can learn from indigenous communities and how they have developed some sort of methods of being sort of naturally resilient to various external factors, and how they are much more in sync with the environment. And so within the IWA Congress in Toronto, we'll be talking a lot about how Indigenous communities have respect for the environment, how they use nature-based solutions to manage some of the challenges that they faced, and how that could be relevant to, emerging areas around the world. So I think there must be some very good practices in Brazil, particularly from some of the indigenous communities, and that knowledge being shared both through the conference you have related to the Amazon, but also in the COP30, I think would be of interest. I mean, that's sort of my view at the sort of more higher level.
Muito obrigado, Carla. Agora vou perguntar mesma
Thank
questão aí
you,
para o
Carla.
Luiz inglês.
I'm going to ask to give the floor to Luis.
Gracias, Alceu. Creo que es muy importante
Thank you,
que
Alcel.
todas las
I
organizaciones
think that
que están
it's
involucradas en
very
el agua
important
tengan una presencia y acción
to have all different
en la
organizations engaged
Hasta
in the water
ahora
sector
hemos sido
be present,
independientemente,
working jointly
y
in
valga
COP30.
el ejemplo, somos una gota de agua en el océano.
So far,
Pero
we
este
have
año mismo,
been
AIDIS ha
independent,
sido
so we
reconocida
are
por
just
el
like a
IPCC
droplet
como
in the
una
ocean.
organización
And
participante en las COP. Pero no lo debemos
this
hacer
year,
solo
we have been
AIDIS o
recognized
aves,
by the
sino
IPCC
que creo que
as
tenemos
an
que
organization
tener una presencia conjunta,
which can
porque en
participate
definitiva, y
in
tal como dije en mi
this COP.
presentación,
But I think
más
that
del 90%
we
de
must
los
work
efectos
together.
del cambio
As I
climático
mentioned
se
in my
reflejan
presentation,
en mucha
more
agua
than
o poca agua.
90%
Y
of the
hablando de mucha
effects
agua,
from
creo también
climate change
que sería importante
are
presentar
reflected
el estudio
in
de caso de lo que ha acontecido en el estado de Río Grande do
oversupply
Sul y
of water or
específicamente
shortage of
la
water
ciudad de Porto Alegre,
I think it's also important
dentro
to
de todo el
present that
conjunto de los problemas que ha creado
case
este
study,
evento
especially regarding
climático
what happened
extremo,
in Rio Grande do Sul,
sacar
in
lecciones para hacer
Porto Alegre.
sistemas de provisión
Among
de
all the
agua
problems that
potable
resulted from
más
this extreme
resilientes
climate
a
event,
los
we
extremos
must
climáticos.
learn some
Una de
lessons
las cosas
so
que ha
that we
causado
can
más
have a more
sufrimiento
resilient
a la
water
población
supply
de
system.
Río Grande do Sul
One of
en
the
general
things
y Porto
that
Alegre en
causes
particular
suffering
ha sido la
to the
falta de
population in
agua
Rio Grande do
potable
Sul in
porque
general, and
muchas de las
especially in Porto
plantas
Alegre,
de agua
is the
dejaron de
lack
operar,
of drinking
sea por sus
water.
propias inundaciones, sea por la
Many
falta de
of the
suministro
water
eléctrico.
treatment
Entonces,
plants no
dentro de
longer
la
are operational.
COP30, siendo
Some
que
of
se
them
realiza
have
en
been
Brasil,
flooded,
creo que
and
podría ser
others do not a
Realmente
very
sobre isso,
important
Felipe,
role
por favor.
in preparing for this. So, Felipe, the floor is yours. Thank you also. Thank you for the question. I echo what Carla and Jose said. I think that it's very important for us to work together jointly. We are involved in COP30, and the Ministry of Environment, together with the federal government, will help us work in this sense. This initiative is very important. I also want to call your attention to this issue around the effects of climate changes. We published a study on the impacts of climate change on water resources in different regions of our country. So this study addresses many questions in this area. We also identified a scale for different water basins as to the effects of climate change. We worked together with different entities and different researchers to conduct this study. This study can work as a subsidy to help us identify the scenario expected in different areas of our country. We can analyze the short, medium, and long terms in this study. For the long term, we are talking about a period from 2071 to 2100. So I think that this study is very important after what we saw in the state of Rio Grande do Sul and in other areas. So I think it's important for us to talk about the impacts of climate change on the water sector. We are very engaged in COP30, and we know how important it is for
Obrigado,
us
Felipe.
to engage in
Obrigado
this
a todos
discussion.
aí pela,
Thank you. Thank you so
pela
much,
participação.
Felipe. Thank you,
Eu
everyone.
queria dizer a
Thank you for
nossos
your
ouvintes
participation. Well,
brasileiros aí que
for those
acompanhem
joining
essa
us
nossa agenda que a gente
online,
divulgou aqui, quem puder se engajar na
please
participação,
stay tuned
no
with
Congresso da Itapevara,
the
Congresso da
agenda
IPES
that
e os nossos eventos aqui, o
we
nosso
shared
evento
with you.
lá em
If you
Curitiba em
can,
novembro,
if you're able to
que vem
engage
pela
in
frente,
our
né? Outros
events
labs
in
e
November and our other events,
integração
we will be very happy to have you with us. We want to promote the integration of Brazilian technicians to have an opportunity to show their experiences and also to receive more input
essa nossa
about.
questão, agradecendo muito aí a participação de
I would
todos
like to
os signatários,
finalize our
infelizmente não
panel
pôde
now.
estar
I
presencialmente,
want to
o
thank
presidente honorário do
everyone
Conselho
for
Mundial da
joining
Água, o
us.
Cala
Benedito
vai
Braga, who
conosco,
unfortunately could not
nosso diretor
join
executivo
us.
da IWA,
Carla,
também temos
as well,
uma
thank you
junta
so much,
direta aí
the executive
nos próximos
director of
meses
the
e anos.
IWA,
O José Luis Inglês,
an
que está
organization
na
with
mesma
which we
cola,
will
e
be
agradecer
working
todo o
very
apoio,
closely
inclusive
over the
nessa,
next few years. I would also like to thank Jose
esforço
Inglese. Thank you so much
da
for
própria
your
busca do
efforts.
Congresso da IWA de 2030.
And
A IDES foi muito importante, nos ajudou, e muito obrigado pela
we know that
presença
the
aqui.
Inter-American
E ao
Association of
Felipe,
Sanitary and
também
Environmental
agradecendo a
Engineering,
parceria, várias
AIDES, has been
iniciativas
very
aí no
important
Fórum do Conselho
in this
Latino-Americano.
initiative. I would also
Você
like to
conta
thank
com a
Felipe,
Ana,
the director of
estou aí
ANA,
sempre à disposição também para a nossa agenda comum aí.
and
Em
I
seguida
would
dessa
like to make
sessão,
myself
nós vamos
available
ter
for
o
further
nosso
discussions.
intervalo de almoço, que
After
também
this
tem uma
session,
agenda
we will
temática.
have our
Nós
lunch
demos
break,
muita
where
importância nessa edição às mudanças
we
climáticas. Já tivemos
will be
uma sessão
discussing
sobre mudança
climate change
climática em
as
geral,
well.
até uma
We
clube
had a
focada
a
especificamente no
specific
Rio Grande do Sul, e
session
agora nós
on
vamos ter
climate
uma sessão
change,
muito interessante, discutindo o
focusing
impacto
specifically on Rio Grande
exatamente
do
que vocês
Sul. And
acabaram
now
de
we
falar
will
aqui,
have
os
another
palestrantes
discussion
citaram muito o impacto das mudanças
about
climáticas
the impact
na disponibilidade
of climate
hídrica,
change
nos impactos sobre disponibilidade de água
on
para
water
abastecimento.
losses.
E depois, a próxima sessão
And
regular, digamos assim, às
after
13h30, será
this
sobre
session
inovações e
at
melhores
1:30,
práticas para a
there will
gestão da
be another
eficiência
another
operacional.
session on
Então, agradeço a
innovation
todos
and best
os palestrantes,
practices
os nossos
for
ouvintes. Vamos para o nosso
an
intervalo.
efficient
Obrigado.
operational management. So now we'll move on to our break.